Welcome to Practicing Connection, a podcast exploring the personal stories and collective practices that empower us to work together to improve our resilience and readiness in a rapidly changing world.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much for listening to the Practicing Connection podcast. I'm Jessica, and I'm super excited to introduce you all to Coral Owen, who's been doing incredible work behind the scenes on the podcast for a while. And now you all get to finally hear her voice as my new co-host. Coral, welcome.
Hey, Jessica, thanks so much for the warm welcome. It's a little wild to be here talking with you rather than being behind the scenes, but I am certainly welcoming the change in scenery and really looking forward to being on this side of things.
So, one of the things that's gone through my mind a little bit is, when we first approached you about this, right? You've been behind the scenes for a while and you've been doing wonderful work there. When we approached you about being in front of the scenes, what made you say yes?
So like you said, I have been in a production role here with the podcast, a lot of the webinars that we do on the other side of the house in OneOp. But, after rolling it around for a little while, the offer to join you as co-host going forward, the thing that really did hook me in is this opportunity to have a front row seat to really intentionally dig into great practices with you. This is something that you and I have done for quite some time, just one-to-one. And so, just the intentionality to have these, this is sounding very self-serving actually now as I'm going through this response. But, I am really looking forward to just having those conversations with you more regularly. And hopefully it also benefits our listeners as we go through and dig into these great practices and stories and conversations.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that too. And, just in like our planning meetings as we get together and we brainstorm some future episodes and, guests and things like that, it's been the energy between us has been really fun. Like, we've been able to kind of play off of each other really well. And really, that should have been apparent to us from like the first time we met, because I met you like before I was, probably it was about 6 months before I became a member, a full-on, fully fledged member of the OneOp team, which at the time was called Military Families Learning Network, because it was kind of a long time ago that we met, and it was such a fun interaction.
It was, yeah. I remember there are a few folks, every so often that I clearly remember meeting for the first time, and you're one of those people. I think we were at a e-extension conference in San Antonio. I had just joined OneOp. I think this was it was almost 10 years ago. That's wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just remember having just a really, mixers to me have always been a little uncomfortable, but I remember I was like, this guy looks so cool. So we got to chatting and I just felt so at ease and really enjoyed our conversation and learning more about you and the work that you've been doing. I remember being so thrilled, like when you joined the project, and we've just continued to have really great conversations over the years that we've worked together. And and here we are.
I forgot it was a mixer that we met at.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay. That was a great conference. And likewise, Coral, I never have forgotten meeting you. And, then we ended up collaborating right away, like on a couple of articles. So what are you most excited about for our work or for the podcast as we move into 2025 and beyond?
So I think I already alluded to this a little bit, that being in front of the mic is somewhat of a growth space for me. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to lean into a bit more intentionally this year, just getting into those growth spaces that can feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. And that is not a bad thing in any sense. But that is something that just that understanding is something that I would like to carry forward into our conversations and the practices and, stories that we're telling throughout this year is just encouraging everyone who's joining us in these conversations to inhabit spaces that may feel a little bit frictiony, a little uncomfortable, because that is what enables us to evolve into that next most awesome version of ourselves. And hopefully that can help foster that adventure for some other folks that are tuning in. This time of year tends to be a lot of momentum and sparking new ideas and practices. I've also found it to be a really beautiful time to reflect. And so, something I was curious, Jessica, are there any reflections about your journey with the podcast so far? Because y'all have been up to this for quite some time. So, as we embark on this next new season, are there any reflections or anything that you could share that you're looking forward to in 2025?
Yeah, lots of reflections. I mean, oh my goodness, we put so much thought before we started this podcast. We put so much thought into it. We talked to colleagues that in our, at the time, Military Families Learning Network, now it's OneOp. We talked to all of our colleagues and we got input on like, what did they want this podcast to feel like? What kinds of things did they want the podcast to talk about? What kinds of professional development areas did they want it to focus on? So it wasn't like we got specific topics from everyone. It was really more like kind of the big picture, like what big picture things do you want it to tackle? And we started with only, I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 a year. So our first few seasons, there's only 6 or 8 episodes in a year, and they were put out monthly, and then we would take a break. And it was really kind of a evolution that was interesting to me, because at first we started with, tackling those topics, those big picture areas that our colleagues had said might be really important for professional development. And then we started to evolve based on other input that we were getting. And so for me, I'm really excited about how we've evolved into, we have a bit of a long form episode at the top of the month, which that's a strong word to use because they're typically only like maybe 40 minutes at the longest. But so we have a little bit of a longer form where we try to do an interview based on input or stories that we've heard about that we want to highlight and kind of lift up to show examples of the military family readiness system in action. And then we have these like little practices that we're trying to put out there. And I don't expect that there's anyone out there who's listening to all of our short practicasts and practicing every single thing. It's really about finding the thing that like sparks you or that you feel like you could incorporate into your daily work and leaving the rest behind. If you're like, nope, that's not for me. I know that's not for me. But what I'm excited about is that we're giving people those options and we're hopefully helping them show up a little differently in the directions that they want to show up in their daily life and work.
One of my current favorite podcasts, they talk about, it's called Mentor Buffet. And this is reminding me that like this is kind of like a practice buffet.
Totally. Oh my God. I love that.
But wow, it's been such a great journey, both to listen in, but also to support along the way. But yeah, thanks for sharing those reflections and also kind of a prospective look. Jess, thanks.
No, you're so welcome. And, along with all these practices we've been sharing, I know you and I are going to be sharing many practices in the year to come. Yet I'm wondering if you have something that's supporting your development and growth right now that you can share with us all. It's a tradition on this podcast with our interviewees, and you are the interviewee today, to try to share a practice, if they have one, that's supporting them right in this moment, right now.
I'm laughing because you can probably see this as we're recording. Jessica and all of my colleagues are probably familiar with, I'm just going to air quotes here, the big donkey calendar. It hangs right to the left of my desk. And essentially, since y'all are just listening to this and can't see what I'm talking about, it's a year at a glance. So it's something that I began using this past year, 2024, just to get a really quick hit look at the year as a whole, just for planning and whatnot. That's kind of the original intent that I purchased and installed it with. But really what I didn't anticipate is that it would help me develop consistency on a couple small practices throughout this past year. And again, this prompted unexpectedly a mindset shift away from executing with perfection to executing sometimes imperfectly, but on a more regular and consistent basis. And what I found now that, closing out 2024 is that those small wins consistently have really added up to a much greater sum than shooting for big days less frequently and less consistently. And so I've just now installed my 2025 calendar, and look forward to cultivating a couple smaller, consistent practices going forward in the new year. So that's mine. What about you? Is there something that you're looking to leverage this coming year?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to just quick mention that if you try looking up Big Donkey Calendar to try to emulate what Coral is practicing, you won't find it. Just think of another word for donkey and you'll get there.
We got to keep it professional here, Jess.
Yeah. I love that practice so much that actually I've got one of those calendars in my cart right now. And so hopefully you'll see one hanging next to my desk sometime soon. So for me, the one that I wanted to share with y'all is my team a while back has started to institute what we're calling a 5 and 5. It's basically like, what are the 5 most important things coming up this week or next, short enough to be delivered in 5 minutes so that we can get through our updates in a short amount of time, and then we can get on to some other things that we need to collaborate on. And it sounds like you guys have heard me talking before, and I think I often am like, hey, connection before content, which is a phrase that I enjoy from another facilitator. But I really think these 5 and 5 updates have actually been really helpful to all of us as a team and how we're able to share just a quick update so that we can get to the content with each other and we can get to connecting with each other. So I think I'm going to probably refine my 5 and 5 process because I do write a little too much about it. And I'd like to shorten it to like a few short bullets. So
I love that. I look forward to hearing how that evolves for you over the year. And maybe we even share that as a practice sometime
yeah,
in the year.
I'd be happy to put a little more sort of structure around it and share like how it's working for our team too. We have a distributed team like across the state, so it's really helpful to have these short little shared pieces that anyone can go and look at. So well, that is it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Coral, welcome one more time. I'm so excited that you decided to take this on as part of your journey. So if you enjoyed this episode, click the share button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. We'll be back next week with a practice for easy priority setting with the Wheel of Life. Until then, keep practicing.
The Practicing Connection podcast is a production of OneOp and is supported by the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Office of Military Family Readiness Policy, U.S. Department of Defense, under award numbers 2019-48770-30366 and 2023-48770-41333.